excited to be in conversation with Owen. Owen is based in Zambia, and he is actually my first guest from Zambia. I've had guests from South Africa, from Europe, but not from Zambia. So, Owen, this is groundbreaking for us. Welcome to the podcast. You're our first Zambian on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope that we'll have many more Zambians. Thank you so much for this conversation. I'm looking forward to catching up and just sharing what we know. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's the idea. The idea is to be all inclusive. To bring as many knowledgeable people on the continent as possible, because we are sitting with a wealth of experience and knowledge that people embody. We're looking out for all those people, who are experts in specific areas to come and share their thought leadership. So just as a way of starting our conversation, Owen, I would love you to introduce yourself. Who are you? And tell us the journey that you've walked. I mean, I am very inspired. Before we started recording, you told me that you started as a teller. For me, that's a great inspirational story to see where you are sitting today. Tell us who Owen is and the career journey that you've walked this far.
Thank you, Sarah, and really thank you for having me. I prefer that I introduce myself as a family man before the director position you have highlighted here. I'm all that, yes. Owen has been working for about 17 years now. I started off right at the bottom, that's what we say. I joined straight from school as a bank teller, working for then Barclays in Zambia. I was very privileged to work under very good leaders. At the time, I remember they encouraged me to study. They encouraged me to also just work as hard as I can. So I've really had a very good story in terms of how my career has panned out in the bank. I worked into my way into technology. Then from there, I got into business. And at some point, I left actually to work for a different bank. But then I'm back, and everybody tells me it looks like ABSA is really home. But in terms of how my career has been, I've had these conversations with a number of friends. I do believe that it's a combination of many things. One, I would not shy to say that I've really worked hard. You cannot get to this position. And I say this with all humility, you can't get to this position if you don't work hard. I always say this to anyone that I come across with who asks me, how has it been? But outside the working hard, there's also a number of things that have to come with you. You have to be humble. You also have to make sure you do the right things. Like you have to study. These are simple things that people talk about every day. The challenge we have is, do you really put them in practice? Because those are the things that get you to the next level. I've also been privileged to work with a lot of great people. My current MD, huge person in the industry. Just working with her is good enough for you to learn as much as you can. But before that, I've also worked with other great leaders. So I think that's been part of my growth ultimately. But just to give you a 1 minute background of how it all started, straight from school, I joined the bank as a teller. And yes, at the time, I remember we didn't even have ATMs as much as we do. I think we only had 2. So I used to be the guy that would sit on a till. One of the moments I remember fondly was where we would get customers come in and we didn't have any digital platforms. So they would walk in the bank and check for their salary and go back home and then come back next day. I think that's where my motivation to join the digital space happened, because it kind of reminded me again when I was a young boy, when my mother would send me to town on a bicycle to go and just check if she's been paid, and then I have to ride back home. So when I look back, that's where my inspiration came in to say, how do we solve these problems without necessarily causing, any more pain than it is? Because today, literally people know they are paid, while sitting in the car, sitting at home, because digital has made all that possible. So when I look at the journey I've taken to be part of a transformation, not just at the bank level, but transformation at the national level, and probably maybe soon at a global level in terms of how we can do things differently. It really gives me a sense of pride. So this is briefly where Owen has been in the last 17 years. But I've also had to do the time, go in the trench. I'll give you a story of one day how I worked up until 4 a.m. in an ATM that was failing to come up because we couldn't connect. And at 8 a.m., the president was coming to visit the site. Those are some of the experiences that are priceless for me. When I look back, they ultimately make me who I am today. And so I'm very happy, and I'm in a place where I feel it's good enough to share the little that I know. And so that's why, Sarah, I'm very, very happy that you have invited me to have this conversation with you. But before I hand over back to you, I also just want to say part of why a person makes this level of growth is where they come from and how they're set up. I'm a strong believer of a family setup. I wouldn't want to give a lot of details, but I'm very committed to how the family, supports me, my own personal family and the extended family. I'm very involved in the raising of my kids. It's something that I'm very passionate about. I literally have conversations with my son almost every day about school. My firstborn son is 12 and he's able to code with no pressure. But the point is, I'm very hands-on, and there's things that I think I learned very late and he's learning now. So I can only imagine his future if he has the right environment, which is what I try to provide. So ultimately, I think that's just generally who I am. And currently, working with ABSA and enjoying every moment of it.
Excellent, excellent. And thank you so much for sharing in a very authentic way, and sharing something of your personal life as well. I'm actually inspired just to hear that you're so involved with your kids. I think we need to be celebrating that a lot. We need more dads, just to be more involved with their kids' lives. Obviously, it's difficult when people have got corporate jobs or just jobs to that they're working towards to provide for the family and to be available, but it's always a conscious effort and a deliberate effort that people have to make, because we show up as holistic, right? Like you said, once you show up, it's not just Owen the director, you are a family person, there are other aspects, and that's what leadership is about. And I'm actually just so inspired, to just see that you've come, like I've already said, from from the bottom, and you've just worked your way up, and commitment, I think is the key, working that 4 o'clock until 4 o'clock or 4 a.m. Until you make sure a system works. It's part of the journey. So that's very, very inspiring, and thanks for sharing that. I would love us now to get into the technical conversation. Digital transformation is no longer even a buzzword. I mean, it's an everyday thing that's happening, and it's a conversation that every person is having. In fact, sometime last year, I attended a conference where they had invited the women CEO on the African continent, and the discussion was around the AI. And one of the professors from Harvard, who was actually giving a talk, was actually saying, every executive, every manager needs to understand at least 30% of technology. You don't have to be technical, but you need to understand the lingo. So then, what is digital transformation, Owen?
I think this is a very, very important question that you ask, and very heavily misunderstood. But the problem has mainly been because those of us that understand it haven't simplified it. And I've always said on many forums I've spoken that the biggest disservice we've done to ourselves as people who are in the technical space is not to simplify things. Actually, digital transformation is very simple. It's the use of technology to transform your business. That's all you're doing. But then you have to manage that with an addition of a cultural shift. At an organizational level, digital transformation sits in your strategy. So what you set in the strategy will determine how far you can transform as an organization, because sometimes it involves massive disruption. But there's also need to understand that there should be a balance between how you can extremely transform versus how you can still sustain a business today and continue to be profitable. Now, in simple terms, digital transformation is really how you wake up every day and do things better. So if any technical person, any senior executive has to understand what digital transformation is the ability for you to use your resources more efficiently, to generate value, to generate the right customer experience, but most importantly, also to create efficiency. If you look at the world today, digital is everywhere. Your TV today is not the same as it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago. You can do so much more with the TV. The first time we had TVs that could be used both as just a screen for watching normal TV, and then you also convert it into a computer screen. That looked like a big thing, but today this is perfectly normal. Your phone today is much, much more than a gadget you're using to just make phone calls. All that is digital transformation. Ultimately, this is how we should simplify what digital transformation is to everybody. And if I were to just summarize what it should do, is three things. One of three things. One, create better experience, whether it's in the form of customer experience or whether it's in the form of just improves the efficiency. That's what it must do. The second thing that it must do is it must improve what I call your appetite for good cost. Naturally, if to run a business or whether just a normal way to live, we live by spending. So that's a cost as well. So digital should come in and help you manage that cost differently. If it is a huge business, how can we deliver more for less? That's what digital transformation is. Last but not least, digital transformation must give you the opportunity to make money. Ultimately, most businesses are in it to make money. So if it doesn't give you these three things, perhaps you need to ask what it is that you're doing. So even if someone is bringing you a shiny toy to say this is digital, just ask those three questions as an executive. Is it giving me better experience? Is it giving me a better cost? Uh, am I driving a better cost? And lastly, is it going to make me the money? Because if you're running a business, ultimately the shareholders that are waiting for you to tell them what you're doing. And this is how, at a personal level, I have been able to understand how digital must be done, but also add value to my organization. Because sometimes people think it's a big thing that you have to do. No, it could be doing something in 2 days instead of 5 days or instead of 10 days. But there has to be clear and steady improvement in what you're doing. That for me is what digital transformation is. Anything outside this is really just something else. But ultimately, I do think that we have a responsibility as experts in the industry to make this topic very simple. And at every chance I get, every opportunity I get, I always try and simplify it like this. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent, and well explained. Let's now consider the examples. I know you've sort of touched on them a little bit, but let's just dive into that line of thought. What are the examples that you can give with
Okay.
regards to digital transformation?
Okay, great. So I think digital has also come with a lot of different benefits. Let's go global. If you look at Amazon, so Amazon, or let's pick a very close to home example. Let's look at Uber, okay, or Yango. In our country, we have a taxi business called Yango. So what has happened here is a group of smart guys sitting down and saying, we don't have cars, but we know people who have cars and who don't know customers. So you see there's a customer and there's a need. And then you have a solution sitting in the middle and say, if Sarah wants a taxi and Owen has a car, how do I connect them? But then you do the big network of thousands of cars and then millions of customers. What do you get there is a business solution that has been done digitally, giving benefit to people. So people are making money out of that. There's a good experience. You know how you can easily pick up a car in 5 minutes because it's within your location. There's also the aspect of how we're efficiently managing this. Uber or any taxi business like that doesn't have big offices, everywhere dotted in any country. They are, centrally located and managing the business much more efficiently than any other business would if they were to set up actual offices dotted across the geographical locations. That's a simple way you can look at how digital transformation is. I'll bring it home to my space. If we look at banking, I will tell you a story of how when I was a young boy, every month and about, because my mom was a teacher and they didn't have a specific day they would get paid. But I do remember many times when she would write on a piece of paper and send me all the way to the bank to go and check if she's gotten paid. Anything could have happened. I could have been hit by a car. I could have gotten lost. But 16, 17 years later, I sat in a conversation with my mom, and she was at home looking at her phone, and she says, "Oh, this money has come." And I was reminding her how life has changed, from sending someone all the way to town riding for 5, 6, 7 kilometers to just sitting in the comfort of your home and you can know whether you've been paid. These are simple ways that life has changed today. Sending money to school, you have a sick child, we just sit on the phone and we send. That for me is what is known as digital transformation. At a very basic level, that's what it is. But it can extend much more to bigger and better things. There will be a lot of disruption in the industry where those that can transform at the pace that others are will run out of business. And the banking industry is a clear example of why we have fintechs now, because we can't change at the same pace as the customer, as a consumer. And so fintechs are coming into our space. And ultimately now we are looking at fintechs as more as partners rather than competition, because we have different strengths. That's one or two ways that you can look at digital transformation. At home, I'll give you an example. At home, you have cameras now, and you can connect your camera to your phone, and you can see at any given time what's happening at home. Some people today don't even have security guards. They have security cameras set up, they have sensors set up, and then they've got an electric gate, or fencing around. That's another way that you can look at digital transformation. On the downside, though, I would like to say this, that it's replacing a lot of low-level skills. And the conversation we need to be having is around how should colleagues position themselves to be people that are employable in the future. There's what we call future skills today. So if I was a teller 10 years ago, the bank doesn't need 10 because now transactions in the branch have reduced. But it doesn't mean I'll be unemployed. What it means then is that I need to look for what will the skill that is needed today to still remain relevant. And I can tell you there's many skills today. You can be a data scientist. You can be an innovation specialist. You can be many of these things that are currently giving opportunity today and not the same way it was 10 years ago. So for me, I think there's a lot around the digital transformation, and the examples I've given are just a small drop in the ocean. But digital transformation, Sarah, is in your everyday life. This conversation you and I are having, maybe 50 years ago, we would have never been able to. Maybe even 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
But you see,
Yes.
you are in a different location, I am here. This is one way that life has transformed. This is all digital transformation.
Beautiful, beautiful. And you bring quite a lot of interesting aspects. I like that aspect of people thinking about their future of work, even at a personal level. Because when people think about digital transformation, the immediate response is, "Oh, the jobs are going to be wiped out." So the conversation is, instead of people focusing on the fact that jobs will be wiped out, which they will, yes, some of them and most of them anyway, what should I be doing as an individual to make myself relevant for the future markets? That should be the conversation,
Absolutely. You know what, Sarah? Today, studies have shown that if you study computer science, that course is only technically relevant for the next 3 to 5 years. And 5 years is a stretch because there's always new technology coming up. And for me, This is the mindset that we need to have as a people, as a group of human beings that are living in today's world. That change is constant. The skills that I had 5 years ago, some of them are not relevant today, because life has happened. Things have moved on. Today, if you look at the top 20 skills, one of them is around programming or coding. And also, the coding that is there is slightly different from the coding I did when I was in school 20 years ago. So I might have learned coding 20 years ago, but the kind of coding that we are supposed to do now is different. I don't know if you've heard about the new kid on the block, on the block, Chat GTP.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
Amazing
big on
things that it
that.
can do. Yes, you see, amazing things that it can do. I've been in conferences now where people have requested the chat to do a speech for them. And the question is, what are people going to do that sit and just every day generate a speech because Sarah is going to have a conversation at a public forum? These are hard questions, very difficult. But if you avoid them, they're going to hurt you in future because you will be in denial. So now, as a resource who's sitting there and doing a speech for your colleague or whoever it is, the question is, okay, if there's a solution to do this, what else can I do? And if you begin to answer these questions early on, they manage you as a person, you manage your expectation, and then you then can do the right things as you go.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think the most important thing that I'm actually big on is just continuous learning. I mean, before we started recording, we were talking about just the value of learning, how you've had to learn, from various places. Because sometimes you think, learning it until we go and get that MBA, or learning is when we sit in class and we get that degree or that PhD. Can you just talk a little bit more about that mindset when it comes to people making themselves relevant and equipping themselves?
Thank you, Sarah. And this question for me is a deep one. When I finished high school, for example, I was very close to about maybe 6 or 7 friends, and all of them actually left the country. Okay, and they went to some of the best schools that we have. But I came from a different background. Yes, we were friends. My parents couldn't afford that, and so I went to a local college. But the reason I'm telling you this story, Sarah, is that you can learn from anywhere and be whoever you want
Yeah.
based on how you look at the learning process. I never got my MBA while I was home by my parents' house. The most my parents were able to afford was to take me up to at least get a higher diploma. But then, if you look at what I have been able to do on my own, it will tell you a story around the fact that I realized that learning is very personal. So I took it very personal. When I was able to, then I said, let me go all the way. Let me get myself an MBA. But I didn't stop there, and I said, let me study some more. And I keep learning. And so that's learning that you do in a structured way. What that does is it validates the fact that Sarah and Owen have acquired some minimal level of understanding, so they are capable to handle something at a certain level. But that's the half, Sarah. That's the ultimate half. The other half is understanding that you can learn from individuals every day. I've always celebrated the people I've worked for in my life, starting from the first line manager I had and the lessons I picked from them to my current line manager. I work with a very powerful woman who has been there and done it. And just being there, being able to work with a person like my current MD, Mizinga Melo, you realize that there's a lot that you can learn every day. So every interaction for me is an opportunity to learn. I read a lot, and this is something that people don't understand. I do read a lot, and today with all material content on the phone, you literally can be uh, on your way to a meeting, and as long as you're not driving, you can read an article and finish and just learn new stuff. This is something that we need to take very seriously, Sarah. The opportunity to learn should never just be a formal one, and we must be intentional about it. Very intentional to a point where I always say I learn from my kids. I learn things. They're living in a different generation from me. But every day I talk to them, I try and understand what are they going through and what does it mean for them? How can I support them better? In my workspace, from the most junior person in the team to the most senior person, I'll treat them the same because they can teach me what I don't know. This is the power of how anyone can make progress in life. Because the moment you get to a point where you think you know everything, that becomes your end. Your journey through life is your ability to learn from Sarah, to learn from Owen, because they definitely know something you don't know. And this is a very strong view I hold about learning.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I share that view in a very strong sense. I think continuous learning is going to has become the way of life. Because even as we've been discussing, the only constant right now is change, right?
Yeah.
Things are changing. So if you're not a person who's invested into learning, you're going to be left behind. And now, more than ever, there's so many opportunities to learn, from free webinars that are always put out there, to free content, free courses on, YouTube, Google, and so on. I'll give you an example. So one of the solutions that our business carries and distributes is robotic process automation. Our business is into automation. I'm not a technical person, okay? But when we made the decision, because the market was demanding us to bring these solutions, when we made the decision, 2-3 years ago to start bringing these solutions to the market, I enrolled myself into learning. I attended every webinar you can think of on robotic process automation. I learned from my junior guys in my team who are developers, who understand the technical bit. I would sit there and, just say, guys, teach me, how does this work? So when I manage a project, I have an understanding because my clients expect me to understand how robotic process automation works. So I didn't have to go into a formal school to go and study for 6 months. This has been an ongoing journey. And to this day, I still learn. I attend those conferences and I'm increasing my exposure to learning. So yeah, that continuous learning, is very key, I think, for now and going into the future as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. We need to keep learning. But now that you talk about robotics, you poke my interest there. So perhaps we could have a bigger conversation outside of this. Part of what I do, Sarah, is we look after innovation. Okay, and we're trying out things. We're trying new things, new ways of doing things, and we are becoming, as banks, we are becoming more open to things that otherwise we would have not been able to do 5-10 years ago. And again, like we keep saying, it's necessary to change. So it would be nice to just have a look at what robotics you're doing. If we can put a team there to just understand whether there's any opportunity there.
Absolutely. We would love that. Owen. Let's now move our conversation into just looking at how ABSA as a bank is effectively tapping into digital transformation. How is that looking like on your side as a bank?
Thank you. Thank you so much again, Sarah. I think as a bank, we're very intentional about how we want to transform. I want to tell you now that we, in October last year, opened our first innovation hub. And this innovation hub is very powerful in the way it's been set up. We've gone out of the capital city. We've set up a hub in a mining town called Soweto. And what we're doing there is very simple, because most people believe that transformation or innovation should only happen in the big cities. We've gone in a small mining town, and we're working with a very wonderful partner called Jacaranda Hub. And what we are doing there is we are incubating business startups to make sure that they understand how to do business. And eventually, these are people that can become the bigger businesses that we can all benefit from in one way or the other. That's just one small way that we're looking at it, doing innovation and ultimately transforming our bank. But the secret of our innovation sits in the way our strategy is set. Digital is a big pillar of what we do. And that's why you have a whole director sitting in the bank to drive that from a strategic point of view. And that's the main role that I play here. Digital to us is in one of three ways. We use digital to improve our customer experience, and that's how we are carrying out a lot of automations. But these are balanced automations. The danger with trying to automate everything is that you can take out the human touch, and this can be too dangerous because people are people. People are humans. We still need to find a way that we can feel, we can touch the relationships that we have. So we are on a very nice transformational journey where we are saying what we can change to improve your experience as a customer. Let's do it. What we can do better, let's do it. What we were doing in 4 hours, can we reduce it to 1 minute or to 30 seconds? The point is we are looking for ways that we can transform a number of things. We just, for example, refreshed our onboarding process because what we want to do is get to a point where the pain points that you can have otherwise when you're opening an account manually, can we fix those and put them in a system so that your experience is seamless? So that's one way that we are looking at how we are driving a transformation. As a bank also, we also know that we need to manage our costs the right way. So we use digital to be able to drive the right cost. I'm careful there to say to drive the right cost because we still need to spend money. So for things that have been expensive for us to do, we're finding smarter ways of doing them. A quicker way would be how we look at paper printing. Other than just, a sustainability conversation, we look at it from, it's costing money to have a printer and to print out something that you're only going to dispose of in the next day. That's not a smart use of money. And now with a lot of technology, you don't necessarily have to print. If it's a document you need to sign, you can sign it online. So that's one way that internally we are looking at how we can improve our efficiency and while making sure that the cost we are driving is the right one. Last but not least would be transformation can help any organization, including a bank like us, to reach more customers and therefore become more profitable. Now, it's very important to understand how you look at profit as an organization. And I'm saying this because it has to be very clear. When you run a corporate organization like ours, you have shareholders and you have to demonstrate that you are then, investing their money wisely. And the way you invest their money wisely is to make sure that you remain profitable. And to be profitable, you need to do the two things that I've said. Drive the right cost. So meaning, if you have any bad cost, take it out of your system. Remain with cost that is going to drive your revenue. And if you're serving customers, give your customers the right experience. One of the products we have at the moment is called Spark. Brilliant product. It's a wallet that we have that anyone can use to transact and begin to enjoy the services that we offer as a bank. There's many other products that we have. You can send money to a non-ABSA account holder. While this looks standard, fairly standard, but it's one way that ABSA is looking at, being financially inclusive, which is what currently is a national agenda. So there's many ways that we're doing this, and we can go on and on. But I think I wanted to just summarize it to say, as a bank, our focus is to use, digital and technology to drive the right customer experience, to help us deliver service efficiently at a better cost, and to really keep us profitable. And the way that will happen is as we develop new products and services, we can remain more competitive, which is what we ultimately want to be as a bank. So that's one way or one of three ways that we are driving digital transformation.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. I love what you said about people, and maintaining relationships as, people are on the journey for digital transformation. And I actually think that's a very important component. So one of the things that we do when we deploy all these automation systems is change management. because we believe that without the component of people, the system is going to be broken. It's not going to work. How important is the change management process and the people aspect in this whole spectrum of digital transformation?
Thank you, Sarah. Another very good question from your end. So if you remember, I said the biggest thing about any digital transformation is the strategy. And within the strategy, you must be very clear how you are going to solve for culture. I've used a simple example on many forums, and I've said, get the best phone on the market and give it to a wrong person. It will be very useless. Now, the principle there is not that the phone doesn't have the features or the phone is not, best in market or best in class. The principle is that you've brought a wrong investment. You brought a right investment to a wrong place. If you look at an iPhone today, let's say iPhone 14, which is currently available. If I give it to you and you just use it to make phone calls, it's the right use, but it's not the full use. Today, when someone has a phone like that, they can use it to build content and make money out of that. Today, if you have an iPhone like that, then you don't have to buy a camera. So you're saving and you're getting the best quality photos you can get. You can make so much from having such an investment. But for you to get there, there has to be a mind shift. That is what is part of culture. Now, banks and many other organizations have struggled with the fact that they have gone away, produced the best in class solution, but you have not taken your customers along the journey. Our own story as ABSA is beautiful because what we've done different is that we realize that our customers are going on a different journey. Yes, we want to digitalize everything, but we have customers that also believe that we have to do it at the right pace. And I think that's one thing that we are getting right, because you can still go into a branch if you want. We have a branch open. And the reason we do that is that maybe Sarah doesn't want to always do everything on the mobile banking. But we have to work with you, understanding that your journey is different from the next person. So when we produce products and services, it's not a one size fits all, because then that will be a problem. That will be us imposing ourselves. So culture then becomes at the center of that. How do you understand your customers to a level where your maturity in the digital space is aligned to the digital maturity of your customer? You can, for example, bring a whole, and you should know this very well because you do robotics. You can, for example, introduce a whole robot to a group of people that do not appreciate what it can do. But even if they do, a group of people who you've not taken through a journey to understand the value. So it's a balance, Sarah. And I think that without a cultural change, without the right management of the change process, any transformation is at a loss. Any transformation is at a loss. And we have a lot of examples.
Well said. Well said. So, yeah, digital transformation without culture really is not going to be successful. So, digital transformation involves culture, it involves people, it involves change of mindset. And I just love your way of thinking from your corporation point of view, where you're saying, each individual is different. So you're catering for different individuals, without just, forcing this whole digital transformation on people. I really, really love that consideration. So then let's look at what it takes when it comes to digital transformation. Do you think digital transformation is costly? What are your views on that?
So any change comes at a price, and digital transformation is part of change. The truth is, you have to invest in it financially. I would even say emotionally, mentally. You have to invest. If you're going to do digital transformation for an organization, for example, you will need the right skills. These don't come cheap. But I think much more than looking at it as a cost, I would then flip it and say it's an opportunity for you to do things better. So if I'm going to spend money so I can have a better life, I don't know if I'm going to call that a cost. And remember earlier, this is why I was explaining around making sure we have good cost. But I would also like to warn that transformation is not just restricted to systems, by the way. We said transformation is also extends to the culture, right? But the most important silent contribution of transformation is in your processes. That determines how much you will spend. Now, let me give you an example. If you are designing a robot for a particular problem in the market, a robot will cost you money to make. But if the benefit is then much, much more than the spend on a robot, you then can turn around and say digital transformation is expensive because it's creating efficiency, it's giving you better opportunities, better experiences. That is why I've always insisted that for you to appreciate what digital transformation is, you have to simplify it to your everyday situations. But most importantly, you have to understand that digital transformation actually is necessary now. Necessary much more that if you don't transform, you are literally killing your own future. So anyone who wants to live in the future has to invest. If you want to live longer, for example, as a human being, then you have to eat well. Eating well, you have to exercise. That's a cost you're spending on yourself to be able to live well. So there's no doubt that if an organization wants to transform, for example, from being a very manual organization to an automated one to a digital one, they have to invest time, resources, which is money, which is skills, among the things they can invest. So I'm very reluctant to fully say that it's a cost, it's expensive, but I know that it comes at a price.
Thank you for bringing quite a balanced perspective as well, and thank you just for explaining those details. Oh, and this has been just an exciting conversation, and you've brought a lot of insights. As we start wrapping up the conversation, I would love us to explore and look at the challenges that come as a result of digital transformation. What challenges come as a result of digital transformation?
Thank you, Sarah. I think the quick one usually is understanding. And that's why I always say relate your digital transformation to your strategy. If you're an organization, if you're a human, I mean, if you're a person at a personal level, relate to what you want to achieve. So the biggest challenge you will face with many organizations face is really how do you simplify digital transformation? How do you bring it? If you're an organization of 1,000 people, how do you get the understanding of digital transformation across everyone the same way? That if someone is in a branch processing transactions, that their role in how to drive efficiency is part of that transformation. That becomes how you look at the challenges you're going to face. The second one is obviously rapid change comes with brings a lot of anxiety. You can imagine some changes require that some roles may actually automate. So naturally, as a human being, if your job becomes one that's automated, you then stress about it. If it's not stress, you then become resistant to the change because it's taking away your livelihood. And which is why I quickly spoke about people being able to understand what it means to be a colleague of the future. Because today, the skills that I have will not be the same skills my organization needs in the next 5 years. I should already start improving myself in that level so that the issue of resistance around digital transformation is minimized. The other one would be around budget. And this is fundamentally something that a lot of organizations have struggled with because it requires that you're going to spend money. Now, if you're an organization today that's already making profit, it takes a lot for an Owen to come and tell you this profit is not sustainable long term because another organization is doing what you're doing efficiently. They just need to get your customer. So those are some of the things that you face as challenges of digital transformation. The fourth one would be around maybe resources. You need good technology, you need good network. That becomes one of the things that you need to fix and you need to make sure is in the right way. The fifth one would be around the skill. So there's many challenges, Sarah, but if I were to summarize for you, it lies in the understanding, it lies in the cultural aspect, it lies in the budget, it lies in the infrastructure, which would be your network, your hardware, and last but not least, it lies into this availability of skills. For example, I have been trying to recruit for a certain role in the last 6 months, and I have not been able to find a resource. Not because people are not applying, but the skill set is very unique. So those are some of the challenges that you face in a digital space like mine.
Excellent, excellent, beautiful, beautiful. And as we close the conversation, do you have any closing remarks that you'd want to leave our listeners with?
Certainly. So, number one, to say to everyone here, Sarah, that you can't be what you don't know. So, if you want to transform as an organization, you need to know that's what you want, and then you need to be intentional about it. This is very important, as simple as it sounds. So, any organization that is looking to transform has to start from knowing that they should and they will transform, and it has to be intentional. I'm referring to this conversation easily because ABSA Zambia knows that digital is a very big part of what we do. And so the digital agenda is one of the big strategy agendas that we have, and is fully represented at a very senior level. You can't get more intentional than that. And so if any organization is thinking about being transformed, they should put the money where the mouth is. So for me, that's what I think should happen. But to you, Sarah, I want to thank you for this opportunity. It's been a very wonderful conversation. I wish we could do this often. It's always good to share what we know. Maybe next time, when time allows, we can get a bit more technical, but simplify it as well. So I'm looking forward to more conversations. I learn every day when I speak to people. So thank you very much, and I would like for you to enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you so much, Owen. Actually, you sort of read my thoughts. You've brought so much value to the conversation. I actually want you back, just so that we can bring more value. Like I said, the whole idea of this platform is to actually narrow the knowledge gap that exists in this space. Because a lot of people, have relegated digital transformation technology to the IT department. But as you and I know, we do need these skills. We do need understanding, for as long as you're a leader in an organization, a manager, you do need to have an understanding of how the new world is functioning, because we are in the digital economy. So yes, definitely, I'll be reaching out to you again to bring more insights. I've actually enjoyed just the way you've broken things down in a very easy way where everybody can understand. And please do have a fantastic day going forward. And thank you for making time.
Pleasure is mine. Have a good one. We'll catch up on the other side. Thank you.
Yes.